welcome to Everyday Board Games. I'm your host, Daniel.
And I'm your host, Daniel.
And today, we're here going to be reviewing Mind Up from Pandasaurus Games. Daniel, tell us what it is.
Mind Up is a quick little card game where you're playing over 3 rounds and you're basically trying to get the best score out of it. You'll have a set number of cards in the middle of the table, depending upon the number of players. Each of you are going to have about 8 cards in your hand, and you're going to use one of those cards to bid on one of the cards in the middle of the table. The reason why you want to do that is because there is going to be variable scoring from each round, so that one person will shuffle up the scoring and give everybody a round. So one set of cards will be 5 points, where another set of cards could be 4 points. Mm-hmm. And so what you're trying to do is bid on those specific cards to get them into the right area. So if your one is sitting at the top, or the very first card, and you grab a green card in the first round, maybe you want to push for another cards because it's only going to give you 1 point per card, and each of those cards may have positive or negative points to help you out during the game. With a twist on this one is the cards that you use to bid for the cards become the new cards that you're going to be bidding for to get into your scoring piles. Mm-hmm. You're always going to draw a card at the end of the round, so you're going to play out most of your cards. One of them is not going to be used, and then you're always going to draw up at the end of the next round, and all the cards that you scored are going to become your new hand. So you're eventually learning what everybody may or may not have in their hand depending on what cards they ended up taking.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because you always start left to right. Mm-hmm. And so if I get a green card and I get a second green card, it's going to go in the green card column.
Yeah.
So if that is my 1 point column and the next one is like maybe a 4 point column and I get a blue card there, I'm going to try and push for blue to maximize that multiplier.
Yeah.
Which is really an interesting little choice.
And I love the fact that it's also the simultaneous play on that aspect too. So everybody's going to pick a card, and once everybody picks a card is when you reveal it, and then you put it in the turn order. So if you have the lowest card, you're taking the first card.
Yep.
If you have the highest card, you're taking the last card.
Yep.
So I love that little aspect. Is like, I really want that green card, but I know you're wanting that green card, so that it's like, which card number do I play out of my hand?
Exactly. So we have 5 different criteria. We take our bias out of these reviews. And the first one is ease of play.
Replay value is the next one up.
Meaningful choice.
Game immersion.
And art and production. So we're going to be starting with ease of play. Let's see who talks about our points first. And the way we distribute points is quite simple. We will give it either 0 or 1 Daniel for each of these criteria. We can each give it that. So if possible 2 points that we call Daniels. And a total of 10 between us by the end of this.
So with ease of play, when we're talking about, we have some criteria for each of these categories. Simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, the likelihood to get to the table based on the mechanism or the theme, or is it easy to learn, understand, and teach? And going back to that other one, likelihood to get to the table, it's just an example. There could be many reasons why, whether it's mechanism, theme, it could be the type of game
Designer,
it is. Yeah, designer. So when I'm talking about like the ease of play, when it comes to the simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism, it's basically high-low in a sense. You're basically bidding on the cards and figuring out what it is. The only real difficulty really in this game is if you play poker, you would get how to play this one because you're just trying to play the other player how you're playing your cards out. Very simple. I can get this taught real easily too. It's very, it's like, hey, you're just bidding on these cards. You want to play low if you want to go for this card. You want to play high if you want to go for this card. If there's something in the middle, maybe you go in the middle of the road, but you don't know what other people are playing. It's very simple to teach. I could teach this to my grandma. In fact, I almost taught it to her this past week on during the Mother's Day week. So we just didn't get any gaming done that weekend, but it is easy enough to teach. My grandma was kind of interested in this one. And the likelihood to get to the table, I give that a Daniel, part of it for that Daniel on that aspect too. And that's what I was talking about, the caveat. The theme, the mechanism, But the fact that it's a quick little card game, that's going to intrigue a lot of people. And so, yes, this gets a Daniel for me.
Okay. For me, the one that stands out is easy to learn, understand, and teach. This is a very simple game to understand and learn. Mm-hmm. And if I was just saying, is this game easy to play, I could say, yeah, it's easy to play, once you get it. However, I don't think that it's a simple or familiar mechanism. The bidding for the cards based on their placement in the row is not super intuitive right away. The way that you score the sets based on the left to right nature of the cards in front of you That's also not directly intuitive. And there is no theme to it, but also even the title, Mind Up, like I don't even know what that means. Now, with that being said, I mean, we take our bias out of it, but I just don't think that this gets a point for, or gets a Daniel for me, because I don't think it's likely to get to the table, or I don't think it's simple or familiar for the mechanisms. I do think it's a very easy game to learn. I want to be clear on that. Once you learn it, it takes a moment to learn. It's very easy to play, but that's not what we're breaking down here.
Yep.
All right. So it does not get a Daniel for me. The next category, though, is replay value. And so replay value is broken into length of time and scaling well, how many players it can play, and how long it takes per player, the minimum number of plays for the full experience, and expandability. So again, we're going to break this down. It's a simple card game. It's one that you could play multiple times a night. It does have some good replay value, but it's a one-trick pony. The one time you play it, that's the one time you're going to know everything about it. There's nothing new that you're going to get from it, and there is no expansions, nor could there really be. I mean, I suppose there might be eventually in the future.
There is a little mini expansion in the game where it gives you just a little variation.
Right, a little bit of variation, but it does play
3 to 6.
3 to 6 players and 20 minutes on the box. That is very reasonable. I think it's a very, very easy game to get to the table. This is the kind that you could probably throw in between other games. It's called fillers, right? And this fits perfectly for that. But I mean, there's a lot of games in this market. I don't think I can give it a point for this either.
All right, so when we come to the replay value aspect of things, the length and time and scaling, well, that's really good. 3 to 6, plays really quick, 20 minutes at that. Minimum number of plays for a full experience, though. I only got to play it the one time to know how it plays. The only difference really on that is when you're shuffling up the scoring cards. That's the only change that you're doing throughout the entire game. Yeah, you're probably not going to get through the entire deck in a game because you only play 3 rounds. And once the cards are out there, you're only getting 1 new card per person each round.
Right.
In the expandability, there's, like I said, one little variant in there that gives you a little, like, goals to go for.
Sure.
But honestly, I don't know how you would expand it. I won't give this a Daniel, even though I think it's a very simplistic game and the length of time and scaling well. It is one of those filler games that I don't mind busting out and playing.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So, meaningful choice is the next category. And meaningful choice talks about impact on other players' strategies or impact on their gameplay, the depth of tactics, strategy, or skills for you, and do arbitrary choices or analysis paralysis negatively impact the game. This is getting a big thumbs up for me, a Daniel point for sure, because there is a lot of depth to it. The bidding, knowing when to bid, knowing that you're going to be flipping over a number that you may not control. Like if I throw up a number 1, there's a good chance I'll be the first to get a card. But there's a chance somebody will. I'm sorry. If I throw a number 2,
1.
If I throw a 1. But if I throw a 2, there's a very good chance. But if you throw the 1, you can irk it out, right? Would it be worth it at that point, or depending on what's coming up?
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider when that comes in. Also, I mean, you just have those moments where you're sitting there, you're like, I know what you've played, I know what you have in your hand, and if I'm really smart about it, and I watch what cards you're picking up, the only one I don't know is 1 card, so I don't know what you have and haven't played yet. And there's a lot of metagaming that can be involved with that, so that's really neat. You definitely impact other players' strategies, whether you do or don't get the cards you need, but it also doesn't feel like completely game breaking, right? It feels like you have a very fair chance to try and get what you need to if you play your cards right. So I'm giving this a Daniel.
All right, for me on the meaningful choice, I give it a Daniel as well. When it comes to the impact on other players, what I like about it is after the first round, if you paid attention to what everybody's picked up and scoring, you know kind of what's in their hand. So if I picked up the 1 in the last round of the scoring, you know I have the 1 in my hand. So when it comes down to you and me are both scoring green, and there's a green in the beginning, it's like, oh, well, I can still get some decent points if I go for this blue card over here. Do I do that instead? Because I know he's got a 1. Is he going to play it to get that green because it's going to score him a lot of points? I love that because there's a lot of strategery that you're thinking is like, do I throw this now? Do I throw it now? And what we haven't really talked about, too, is that some of these cards carry bonus points like +1, +2, or -1, -2 that you all tack on at the end of your scoring. So you score each individual section, and then any pluses or minus you add to that score, and that's going to be your score for that round. I like that aspect. So it's like, do I want to take this card? Yeah, it's going to be really good in the blue section, but it's also -2. Do I
Right.
really want to take that negative
Yep.
there? Is it going to impact me in a certain way? It does a lot of things. There's not a lot of AP because it plays so fast and so quickly, and everybody's just sitting there. And what I like about here too is like when it comes down to that AP aspect, when everybody's got their cards waiting at the table, and you're the fourth player, and everybody's just looking at you like you're like,
oh no, yeah.
It does mess with them a lot, and there's not really a lot of arbitrary choices because everything's out in the open pretty much once you go through that first round. The only time it's really hidden information is your opening hand and the one card you drew up at the end of the round. That is it. I love that aspect of this game, so it gets a big Daniel for me on this.
Yeah, and not only just that, like you said, like the only time you're not privy to information is that first round, but so is everybody else.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're just as in the dark as they are. You only know the 10 cards or whatever, however many you have that they don't.
I think it's 7, if I want to say.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The next category is game immersion.
And when we're talking about game immersion, is the game fun to lose? Is there player interaction, whether it's table talk, role playing, how you get into the game? And are there those memorable moments in this game? And when it comes to game immersion, even though there's not a lot of theme in this game, in fact, none whatsoever, I'm giving this a Daniel for a lot of really big reasons. There is memorable moments in this one. There is that time where it's like you're bidding on something and you're sitting there and you're like, all right, I think this can get me. It's in the middle of the pack. I just got to make sure I'm in the middle of the pack to get one of these cards right here. And you flip the card over, and I play a 26, and everybody else is under there, so you have to take the bottom card. And you're sitting there moaning and groaning. You're like, really? A 26 went to the end? So I love that aspect of it.
Yep.
There is player interaction because everybody kind of knows what people have after that first round. So when you play that card, I'm like, oh God, I hope he doesn't play the 25 right now. I don't need him to do that. That better not be the 25 in your hand. That kind of stuff too. And it is very fun to lose because there's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of rolling in this one. Yep. Getting on each other's cases and just having a fun time. So I give this a good Daniel.
Yeah, I remember there was multiple times during our gameplay where we would flip over a card and like, you would throw a 1 right now. How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just that constant like, I'll take my card now, the one that you wanted. You know, like that table talk is just really promising in this. And again, like, I mean, it's just silly. As long as you're not a sore loser, like in a game like this, like, well, you know, it just didn't come out my favorite, you know, just because of what I had. It's hilarious. Like, as long as you're okay with shenanigans like that, this does it in spades. So this also gets a Daniel for me.
For one of the most unthematic games that we've reviewed, this gets a Daniel for both of us.
But that's the thing, right? Is that you're in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're playing that game, you're 100% in, and you're focused, and you're laser sighted to what you're trying to do, and you're in the mind of Mind Up. That's immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be thematic experience, but it's an immersive experience nonetheless. And our final category will be art and production. And art and production, very simple. First, we break it down with the art, the pieces and components, and the graphic design. First off, no art. Nothing.
Numbers.
There's nothing exciting here.
Numbers and colors. That's all there.
The only symbol is the number of points. Really, like if you get minus or negative.
Mm-hmm.
The colors of the cards, they do have little shapes on it to help designate what suit they're part of. So Pandasaurus was very reasonable on that. So the graphic design is good. It works exactly what it needs to do. Pieces, components, the card stock is pretty good. They're all very clear of what you're doing. The art, I mean, this is the most generic thing that they could have done. And granted, that they know that they didn't have a theme on it, and they weren't trying to push a theme onto you. But because of it gets the other two parts, this is a Daniel for me.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly on this one. The art, non-existent. Graphic design, well done. I like the fact that even for colorblind people like you and me, who are red-green colorblind, but it's also really built well for people who are blue-yellow colorblind. So because they put the shapes on the color. So I always struggle a little bit with like the blues and the purples and the reds and the greens. Well, I could tell. The oranges are triangles. Right. The purples are little diamonds aspect of it. Right. So it makes it really easy for you to find. The graphic design is through the roof for such a little small card game that they put enough thought in there. Like, let's put little shapes. This way people know what color these are.
Yeah.
for those who are colorblind. Cardstock's great, really well done. The rule book's really intuitive, real easy to read. We just recently reviewed a game where we knocked the rule book because it wasn't very intuitive.
Right.
And so I have to give them a thumbs up on making this a lot easier. The only thing is the art is non-existent, but it is getting an art and production Daniel from me.
All right. So with that being said, I gave it 3 out of 5 Daniels.
And I gave it, I think I gave it 4. Yeah.
4. So a grand total of 7 out of 10 Daniels. That is Mind Up from Pandasaurus Games. We hope you've enjoyed this review. If you do, comment down below. Tell us your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. Either way, comment whatever you want. It helps the algorithm. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day's a good day for board games.